Hello, and welcome to the challenges of living with chronic illness and disabilities. This is a 7-part series, and we're going to start with part 1. In part 1, I'm going to tell you about what it's like living with chronic illness. I have personal experience with this, and I'm going to show you people who are living with varying types of chronic illness. The biggest category of chronic illness is autoimmune diseases, but basically a chronic illness is anything that just keeps going on. A cold, flu, even pneumonia, that's not chronic illness. Chronic illness are like autoimmune diseases, which can be developed at any time in life. Most often they're developed early in life or in middle age, and unfortunately they don't go away. There are many forms of chronic illness, thousands. There are over 120 types of just autoimmune diseases alone. It can often seem like you're just being overwhelmed with medical bills. And for obvious reasons, this in itself is devastating. One of the worst things about chronic conditions, chronic diseases, is that, medicine is really excellent at dealing with acute illnesses. But there are no cures for most chronic illnesses, especially autoimmune diseases. But once something becomes lifelong, there are virtually no cures for that. Yeah, you had a question?
What's the difference between an acute disease and a chronic illness?
Acute illness is something that resolves on its own or with medical intervention in a reasonably short period of time, days, weeks, or a few months. Chronic illness can go on for years or even decades or a whole life. There's increased anxiety. It often seems like there's nothing left to life except going to medical treatments, depending on what you have. There's chronic pain, chronic malaise, chronic fatigue, chronic disabilities of all types. Depression, it just goes with the territory. One of the things that makes it so hard is when you see everyone else out there living a full life, doing really exciting things, and you can't do those things. Sometimes life seems pretty confining. Sometimes there are people living with primary immunodeficiencies or who are immunosuppressed to a severe degree and have to wear masks. This can lead to anger and sadness, depression, and just a longing to be normal. Disabilities affect people of all ages. One of the really painful things, in this case, you have a healthy brother who is feeling guilty that he's healthy and wants to do nothing more than to help his brother, and yet there's little he can do except to be fully present. And that's what we can do with people who are living with these conditions, is to be fully present with them. It can seem like your house or your life has been pulled out from under you. There are traumatic losses. There's bodily dysfunction of all types. There's a frightening path that you have to walk through medical treatment, frightening diagnostic and treatment procedures. Life can seem pretty limiting. Loss of relationships, isolation, loneliness, and the needs for community. A lot of fear of the unknown, never knowing what's coming next, a lot of what ifs. With the loss of the ability to work, there's not only the loss of income, but the loss of a sense of belonging and community, no longer being part of the workforce. You may have been living in a beautiful private home and end up, because of expenses, in Section 8 housing. You no longer have the ability to engage in all the things in life that really mattered to you. There are many people out there who are so sick they're no longer well enough to parent their own children. Caregiving is something that we all it gives all of us meaning and purpose, even children. And you can't do that when you're very sick. One of the worst things that happens is getting to a point where you're fully dependent on other people to do literally everything for you. You know, people are afraid of that happening in old age. It happens to people who are a lot younger. It's important to make peace with what you have. But to do that doesn't mean being passive. It means actively pursuing every avenue of making life better for yourself, while at the same time being at peace that, okay, this is what I have, but that doesn't mean I have to be passive. The problem is, it's often hard to know what direction to go in. So I've given you a look at what living with chronic illness and disability is like, introducing you to the various problems of living with these conditions. And I just want to summarize all the different types of things that people with chronic illness and disabilities live with, especially chronic diseases. Anxiety, depression, pain, fatigue, malaise, disability, and the losses. Loss of career, loss of livelihood, loss of relationships, loss of meaning and purpose, loss of the ability to enjoy your favorite activities. So now in part 2, we're going to explore the clinicians who've been doing research to figure out how to make life better. I have a lot of resources on my website. I'd like to invite you to view my website. And I want to thank you for your attention.